and a new surge of optimism is placing impossible dreams firmly within our grasp. What we are witnessing today is the renewal of the American spirit.
That President Trump from last night, Stephen Roberts, the best in the business, dissecting last night's presidential address. Good morning, Stephen Roberts.
Hey, pal.
I think President Trump is a genius because he can say two different things to two different groups, and the groups can want to hear exactly what they want to hear, unlike anything we've ever seen.
Well, look, I do think that this speech has been very well received by Trump supporters. I do think the word presidential has been used a lot, and with some justification. Part of it is the setting. This is very different from a partisan rally, even in some ways from the inauguration. The House of Representatives, with the Congress there, with the Supreme Court, with the cabinet, the whole aura says presidential, and it says gravity. The president might be an amateur politician, but he's a professional TV performer, and his skills at that medium showed itself last night, no more than at that moment when he honored the dead Navy SEAL, and that moment of cascading emotions around his wife in the balcony. Donald Trump is very good at this, and he used language that was a little more conciliatory. He did reach out to Democrats. He was more measured. He was more disciplined. But I don't think it changed a single mind of a single Democrat in that chamber. I think the Democrats have decided that for 8 years, Republicans implacably opposed everything Barack Obama tried to do, and that they're going to return the favor. And I think that yes, he said his message was received in very different ways, depending on where you sat.
But Republicans were all in, all right? I mean, that was a speech. I mean, you couldn't help but see Speaker Ryan giddy sitting behind him. It was almost like a speech he would have written and he would have given.
I don't quite agree with that because you got to remember that the one word, 2 words, 3 words that Donald Trump never spoke last night: deficits and balanced budget. Paul Ryan has spent his entire career focused on fiscal discipline, as have a great many Republicans, particularly in the House of Representatives. Donald Trump gave a long list of things he wanted to spend money on. He wanted to spend more money on defense, school vouchers, infrastructure, building a wall with Mexico, all of which got a lot of applause. There wasn't a single word about how he was going to pay for it. There wasn't a single word about how do you balance out that spending. Now, Republicans can say, oh, well, as they have often in the past, Reagan did this, many others, well, we're going to generate so much economic activity it's going to pay for itself. That has never happened. Didn't happen with Reagan, didn't happen with George Bush. It's not going to happen with Donald Trump. And at some point, as giddy as Paul Ryan might have been last night, when you start adding up the numbers, and that no one did that last night, but when you start adding up the numbers of all of the proposals and what they're going to cost, and what they and I add in big in his phrase, big cuts in taxes, there's only one result to that, and that is to enormously expand the deficit. Now, at what point does Paul Ryan and a lot of fiscal hawks on the Republican side say, wait, this is not Republican orthodoxy?
Well,
That's one thing to keep your eye on.
Speaking of that, I did find it somewhat interesting that I saw Republicans stand up and clap for paid family leave, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Well, it was, and this is an issue that, by all accounts, Trump's daughter Ivanka has been pushing. She is a working mom and has been a strong voice within his inner circle for reaching out to women and understanding the economic stresses on young families. And he can potentially put some Democrats in a difficult position. While I think their default position here is implacable opposition. If he really is serious about paid family leave, it's going to be very hard for a lot of those Democrats to oppose him. If he's really serious about an infrastructure spending program that's going to put a lot of Democratic union workers to work, they're going to be put in a very difficult position. It's going to be easy for them to oppose some of his policies on immigration and on defense spending. but it's going to be a lot harder on some of these other issues. There are going to be splits in Republican ranks, but there are going to be splits in Democratic ranks too.
Explain the tea leaves to me. Yesterday afternoon, a story leaked that Donald Trump was willing to cut some type of deal on immigration. It's time to let these people sort of find a path to citizenship. And it broke before the speech and then nothing in the speech. What's the strategy there?
I'm not quite sure. Trump did not make that statement in a polished statement. He made it in a conversation. And as we've learned with Donald Trump, some of the things he says in conversation don't necessarily square with his basic policy. Sometimes he's repeating something that he heard recently from someone who's influenced him. It was an interesting thought. Trump, for all of his extraordinary hostility on the issue of immigration, has a soft spot for the group has been called dreamers. These are people brought to this country as youngsters, never known another country, now often in college and in the military. Barack Obama issued an executive order protecting them. It really didn't lead to any kind of legal status, but it was a safety valve. They wouldn't be deported. They could get driver's licenses, work permits. Trump has expressed more than once sympathy for that group of people. And one possibility here is that what he's really saying is, I really do understand that this one small group is a special case, and that maybe we can find a way of legalizing them. But in the past, Democrats have resisted that kind of piecemeal deal. They have always said, look, that's the easy one, and we don't want to give in to Republicans and don't want to compromise on that one because we want a much larger, comprehensive bill. Now, what's happened, of course, is that they have totally failed to pass any kind of larger bill. One did pass the Senate several years ago with 14 Republican votes, but it met with such hostility in the House of Representatives and never came up for a vote. And some of the people who are uneasy with Trump's comments on immigration are actually hardline Republicans for whom one of their cardinal principles is any attempt, any effort to legalize any undocumented immigrant amounts to amnesty. So he's going to have some trouble on his right wing on that one, too.
Yeah, interesting stuff. That is Stephen Roberts, ABC News political analyst. Thanks for checking in, Stephen.
Anytime, pal.
You got it. Thanks. 728, Big 550.